Good evening. Today is Tuesday, October 14th, and the time is 6:53 PM, and I would like to call this regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Here.
Webb. Siegel. Hankin.
Here?
Caliphate.
Here.
Hauk. Serrata.
Here.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum. Next on our agenda, annual meeting nominations and elections. Consider nominations for annual elections for chair, vice chair, assigning secretary duties, and adoption of regular meeting calendar. Mr. Lutz.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. So tonight's that time. Each October, we take nominations for chair and vice chair. Again, staff recommends appointing city staff to serve as city secretary. I recommend Debbie, but if you want to choose me or Kayla, that's also fine. Commission shall establish time and place for regular meetings, and staff has proposed the proposed calendar. So that's tonight. And when we talk elections, go ahead and open it up for nominations. Following the nominations, a vote will be taken. A minimum of 4 votes needed to pass. And then vice chairman, current chair will open the nomination for the vice chair, and then following nominations, vote will be taken with the minimum of 4 votes needed to pass. So, and then following that vote, the elected chairperson will run the meeting. So.
Okay.
And then we also have the calendar tonight. Calendar is going to establish all of our meetings through 2025, the rest of this year, and 2026. Holidays which cities are closed are highlighted. We also have APA conferences. It does not contain any special called meetings. And then this calendar is subject to change, but the commission is required to meet at least once a month. I don't know if y'all will be able to read that. I'll leave it up just for a little bit. And so recommendation is elect a chair and vice chair, assign secretary duties to staff, and then adopt the calendar as presented or with modifications.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will open nominations for chair.
Madam Chair, I think you've done a great job. Would you like to continue to serve?
I would be happy to fill that position.
Then I would nominate you for chair.
Okay. Oh, hello, Commissioner. Okay, so are there any other nominations for chair? Okay. All those in favor of appointing myself as chair for another year, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay. Now I will open the nomination for vice chairperson.
Do we know if Mr. Siegel will want to serve again as vice chair?
I'm sure he'd be willing to serve, and I would say that would be completely appropriate since he's not here, you know, to volunteer him if that's what you would like to do as a board.
Okay. Sounds like we have a nomination from Commissioner Serrato and Commissioner Copeland for Neil Stiegel as vice chair. Is there any other person we would like to nominate? Okay. All those in favor of Neil or Commissioner Stiegel for vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, we've got our vice chair.
He's been voluntold.
Voluntold. Thank you for your service. All right, assigning secretary duties. I would like to nominate staff for secretary duties.
Perfect.
Perfect, okay. Is there anyone else we would like to nominate for that? Okay, all those in favor of staff as secretary, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, secretary's done. And lastly, we've got our regular meeting calendar. Should we have a nomination on that? Or a motion? I guess it's a motion, not a nomination.
Yeah, it is a motion. If you could go back one slide real quick. As kind of in normal conformance fashion, we've worked around some of the holidays to really try to highlight some of the conferences, you know, that traditionally both staff and the commission's invited to. And then, of course, November and December are hectic with the holidays. So we've really tried to work around those dates and holidays as well. So I think we have the rest of the remaining of this calendar year up at the top, just so you could finalize those. If you've noticed, we're working around Veterans Day, so we have that special meeting on Monday on the 10th versus 11th on Tuesday, since that's a federal holiday, and then and then forecasting the calendar for 2026.
Thank you for your foresight and planning, all of these things. It's like you do planning for a living or something. It's cool. I would like to make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 calendar as presented.
Second.
Okay, seconds all around. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Calendar, done. Thank you, Mr. Lutz.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, next we have approval of minutes. Consider approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission, September 23rd, 2025, regular meeting minutes. We need a motion and a second to take action on that.
I make a motion to consider approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission minutes from September 23rd, 2025.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion to approve the minutes from Commissioner Serrato and a second from Commissioner Califoot. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, minutes are done. Moving to the citizen comment period, the Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments from citizens early in the agenda of regular meetings. Speakers are provided with an opportunity to speak during this time period on any agenda item or any other matter concerning city business, and they must observe the 3-minute time limit. At this time, I do have one public comment form from Mr. Rocha. If you wish to come forward now.
Hi, good evening. I appreciate you all being here. I'm Kenneth Rocha with Hometown Kyle. I really wanted to show up today to thank y'all for your due diligence on City Point or Project City Point. We know that council looked at it, approved them, but did not approve the CUPs. I think the CUPs was a well thought out addition to the recommendation, and I'm sad to see that they were not approved on the first reading. I would ask this commission to reinstate the addition of CUPs during second reading. With CUPs, I believe it gives the public the opportunity to interact through the development, but as the mayor has said, it also allows y'all to interact through the project. I'm going to make sure I say what I came to say, so I may read. So staff noted existing development agreement language allows for administrative approval for non-compliance changes or minor deviations, reducing the need for the recommended CUPs. Even the mayor was advocating and questioned the developer why they wouldn't want to go through the CUP process. And we heard from the developers tell council that it didn't seem necessary. And of course, council listened. Without CUPs, public input is limited. The development agreement's adherence with a project this size may result in developers not meeting all the requirements, but being able to provide some offsets or alternate methods of compliances or AMOCs that would help kind of meet some of the requirements later down the road, or worse, showing up to final inspections and seeing modifications to what was approved, and then it coming back to y'all anyways, saying, hey, this situation, it wasn't quite built to speed or to what was approved. I think you, Madam Chairman, you advocated the length of time between the different phases of the project. So it's not naive to think that changes will happen. And it's a lot for staff to shoulder, trying to ensure those guidelines as there may be some changeover in staff throughout the years. And we want to make sure that what we've approved and what council has approved and what we've expected as a community is what's actually the end result. So I encourage you to reinstate your recommendation to council at second hearing to advocate for the need for CUPs. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, at this time, I will close the public comments. Next, we have our consent agenda. We have a final plat for approximately 15.5 acres out in Plum Creek Brick and Mortar Doherty subdivision at 723 Kohler's Crossing. We need a motion and a second to take action on that.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion to approve the consent agenda from Commissioner Califoot and a second from Commissioner Serrato. Is there any discussion on the item? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, that is approved. Next, we have our consider and possible action. Consider approval of a conditional use permit for proposed revisions to the building materials for a building located at 1050 Bunton Creek Road in the Goforth Road Overlay District, CUP-25-0147. Ms. Sharp.
All right, good evening, Kayla Sharp, Senior Planner. Let me skip through some of these real quick to get to the next one. Sorry about that. So this one is a CUP for 1050 Bunton Creek. Some of you may remember we saw this one a couple weeks ago. They are now coming back with a new application and have two options to propose to you tonight. So just kind of brief rundown, the applicant is seeking a revision to previously approved plans for a property in the Goforth Road overlay. The approved materials consisted primarily of stone veneer and stucco. The proposed materials consist of stucco, brick, and wood look fiber cement panels, as well as some kind of looks like tubing as well. The original CUP was approved in September 2023 and construction started shortly after. During the final site inspection in April 2025, it was discovered the building materials were changed during construction. And then, like I said previously, y'all saw this recently, a CUP for the revised materials was considered by the commission and denied back in August. The applicant's rationale, they provided a letter outlining the reasons for the change that included some cost constraints and a desire to better align with the aesthetics of newer designs in the area. So rather than appealing the commission's previous decision to council, the applicant is proposing two options for consideration tonight. One changes the color of the stucco to a more neutral tone, adds wood tubing accents, and then maintains the brown wood look fiber cement panels. Option two also changes the color of the stucco to a more neutral tone, also adds the wood tubing accents, but paints the wood look fiber cement panels to a gray color that closely matches the original approved CUP. So just for a reference, here is the original approved CUP, and then the current conditions, as well as a photo. So here is option one. So like I said, changes the stucco color, adds the wood tubing, keeps the wood look fiber cement panels. Some renderings of what that looks like. And then here is with the gray option. So kind of better aligns with what was originally approved. And the renderings for that as well. So the building is fully constructed, as previously mentioned. The Goforth Road overlay also does not have specific building material or architectural requirements like the I-35 overlay has. Staff is supportive of either of the proposed options. So your options tonight are to approve either option one or option two as presented, approve either of those options with modifications, or deny the request. And staff is recommending approval of either option one or option two. And I will say we also do have representation from the applicant here tonight as well, if y'all have any questions for them.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff?
No questions.
I do have one question. In the presentation, it mentions that one of the rationale for changes was to better align with the aesthetics of newer designs in the area. What newer designs specifically are we referring to?
So that was coming from the
The letter.
owner's letter. Since I've been here, there haven't really been any new designs in that specific area. There have been some similar projects to this one in Kyle, kind of in the general Button Creek area, but not necessarily right in that immediate vicinity. But
Okay.
some of the newer stuff along Button does kind of closely match what this one is looking like.
Okay, cool, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Not for staff, but for the applicant, if we can.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Roy Perneda with Perneda Construction, and on behalf of the ownership and myself, I wanted to sincerely apologize from deviating from the originally approved elevations. It was not our intent to not be compliant with the board's decision. I've successfully completed over the last 10 years some 6-7 developments here in the city of Kyle, and I never tried to not be compliant with the city's requirements. It's just that this is the first one inside of an overlay district. And so we didn't, I think, really fully understand the significance of following exactly what was approved. So we appreciate y'all trying to work with us on some of the different options to try and keep the costing in check for the ownership. So, thank you. So outside of that, I don't know what.
Mr. Pineda, thank you for showing up tonight and
Thank you.
answering questions and presenting two options for us to consider. Do appreciate that feedback as well.
Thank you.
I want to get a better understanding of what would be prohibitive to go back to the designs as originally approved.
Sure.
What does that mean in practice, and why is going back to that approved not possible?
So some of the things is that for one, the materials that were called out in the original approval, like some of the porcelain, first of all, the sizes that were called out in centimeters. And we just didn't think, one, the cost was a factor. Second was just how durable the materials would be over time. The ownership had recently completed another couple of projects, and some of the materials they used on the other projects they really liked and wanted to incorporate into this development. And that's kind of what led us to where we're at right now.
And you believe that the two options presented would have more durable material that would
Yes.
last longer than what was originally approved?
Yes.
And can you give us any kind of scope as to why it is cost prohibitive to go back to the as approved?
It's just now everything is done now, and we'd have to go back to seek additional funding to try and retrofit everything to the original approved elevations.
And there's not a viable option to go back to that approved drawings?
Well, I'd have to let the ownership answer that question. It's their money, not mine, so.
Could we get an answer to that?
They're basically asking us, could we go back to the original approved elevation, what was approved originally? We haven't come up with the total cost of what that would cost ownership, so I'm sure difficult for him to answer that question right now.
I would just say to you,
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Kind of on what Roy was saying, as far as the initial materials that were called out, this is a good exterior elevation rendering, right, as far as the colors and stuff of how, it should be. However, I don't know if you by chance have the, like the original legend of the type of materials.
On the type of materials.
But the type of materials that the architect had initially submitted was something more along of like what you would see downtown Austin, like big granite, tiles, slabs, that you paste on the side of a building and stuff. More something like you'd probably see on the side of Bob Bullock Museum, and so, that, would, inject a considerable higher amount cost, opposed to kind of what we're proposing here with options 1 and 2 and just trying to retrofit and maybe better, from where we're at, try and match the color, more of the color rendition of what initially was approved.
And at what point from submitting designs to this commission and final construction and identification that it was not the approved materials, was it determined that that wasn't a viable option and the materials had to be changed? At what point did that occur?
not quite sure answer that question, just because, you know, the project originally, but prior to the board giving the approval to elevations, the ownership asked for a budget on the initial drawings, which weren't the final drawings. And so things went along, and I guess there was just a lack of communication between the architect and the ownership as to what the ultimate approval was. That was one. And the second thing that I can say is, after having built the other projects, is that at the point of like the pre-con that we had with the city, I guess because we had added other bills within the city, they really didn't even require a pre-construction meeting, right? To say, hey, just understand this is an overlay district and you have to comply with what was approved. There was no disclosure on behalf of the city at that time, or else I would have made sure that I complied. Some of the other projects, we've changed some of the exterior finishes and looks, and it wasn't an issue. We made that mistake here. So the intent was never to go against the commission's, approval, approved elevation. So that's it.
And of the two options presented,
Right.
do either option present better, more durable materials than the other?
I think they're both trying to work with what's established. It's more of trying to see what color scheme would flow better with what the commission is wanting to see inside of the overlay district.
And so the differences are primarily color and not material, or not really cost differences on your team, correct?
No, not right now, outside of just, adding the steel tubing and the other black steel tubing that's, right, that can be introduced as well. That's mainly the cost changes to what's here, but we feel like the materials that were used are good exterior finished materials and are long lasting and durable.
How quickly can either option be implemented?
I think within 3 weeks to 4 weeks.
My understanding is really they're painting the materials that are in place, including adding the tubing here, but this is really paint modifications.
Okay.
I don't think the materials are being changed.
Right, it's mainly getting the tubing, yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff or the applicant? Okay, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We would need someone to come forward with a motion and second it, and then we can, I guess, discuss and vote on that.
Maybe toggle from option 1 to option 2 one more time, so everyone.
Option 1, the main change here is gonna be the stucco and the tubing. And then 2 would paint the fiber cement panels gray, and then the stucco color and tubing as well.
I'd like to make a motion to approve option 2.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion to approve option 2 from Commissioner Caliphate and a second from Commissioner Houck. Is there any discussion on that?
Yeah, one quick thing. The reason why I do like option 1 is because it wouldn't be painted. So with the material being repainted, is it going to fade over time and maybe eventually not, the last thing you want is a building to start changing color due to it being painted. So that's why I was going to go with option 1.
With option 1, in looking at that building in the context of its neighbors, I think option 1 fits better with the surrounding buildings. I do think option 2 on paper looks nicer, but I think option 1 fits more in the context of its neighbors. I also still really don't love that it's not what was approved. I don't love that there's approval mechanisms that weren't followed, and that we're at the point today of making a correction.
Right, I agree. I don't think we were dealt a good hand, but, at this point, we're not gonna bulldoze the entire building and start from ground up. So, I appreciate y'all being here today, and I think option 1 is a good option simply because of the potential of paint chipping and eventually fading. I think that's my vote for option 1.
Can I make a clarification? Are the fiber cement panels that are currently installed, do they not have a coating system applied to them? They do, so the current panels are painted as well? Probably factory painted opposed to field painted?
It's, baked on type finish.
Okay.
Just a clarifying question for staff, I guess. If we deny both options, what happens then?
So if both options are denied here tonight, they'll essentially have a couple of options. They can either appeal that decision to the city council, and then city council will consider these options, or they can do kind of what we're doing here tonight. They can apply again and choose to come back. I will say right now the building has a temporary certificate of occupancy, and there are two tenants that have temporary certificates of occupancy. So we've been trying to work to not have to, revoke those or anything like that. But there is kind of that at play as well. If we don't get to some sort of decision, it might get to the point where the city has to, revoke a certificate of occupancy, which we really do not want to do.
We definitely don't want that.
We don't have to, but there is that possibility.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion on the table right now is to approve option 2. If we want to take a vote on that one, I think we have to close that motion before we could possibly consider another one, if that's what the commission decided to do.
Withdraw my second? Is that a thing?
We still vote on it.
Still vote on it? Yeah, go for it.
It just might not win.
Okay. Any other discussion on it? Okay, the motion is to approve the conditional use permit with option 2. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
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 Okay, that motion does not pass. I guess that means it fails. Motion fails. Need a new motion.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve option 1.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion to approve option 1 from Commissioner Serrato and a second from Commissioner Copeland. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay. I do have one question. I guess, again, it's for staff, sorry. The rendering that we're looking at, the color for the stucco looks kind of gray, and then on the illustration of the elevations, it looks more like a creamier, warmer white color. Which color are we actually going to get? What are we approving? Are we approving the drawing or the image?
There's going to be some discrepancies just because it's an image. It's not actually what you're seeing on the building. They should have a color listed specifically there, but I imagine it would be kind of more of like a creamy whitish gray. I don't know if I'm getting a thumbs up. So.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I like the creamier white color. I think it plays better with the wood tones and stuff instead of a cool gray. So that was my only little question there.
If I could read it correctly, it looks like it says Sherwin-Williams Alabaster.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was our understanding that we were going to try and match more of like the actual picture color rendition. And so like you just stated, it is more of like a gray. So we, selected a color based off that. However, I agree with you in going with this, what's on the board, what's on the TV now, in that creamier, kind of more light tan, color, which we can do as well.
Yeah. Okay.
It looks like option 1 already includes that, if I'm understanding it correctly, though, right?
Yeah.
Let me just make
So
sure.
I've zoomed in on the image on my iPad. It definitely says it's stucco would be Sherwin-Williams Alabaster. So if we
Oh,
can
it
just
is.
commit to
Yeah,
doing
so
that.
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So saying, what she's saying
Yeah,
is
good.
the image at first, but
Yeah.
looking at this image,
Yeah.
it's the alabaster, yes.
Correct.
Okay, thanks, guys. All right, any other discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor of approving option 1 for the conditional use permit, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. All right, next we have consider approval of a conditional use permit CUP for 9 proposed buildings, including 6 multifamily residential buildings, 1 mixed-use building, 1 leasing office/clubhouse, and 1 restaurant building, in accordance with the applicable development agreement for property located at 1201 Seton Parkway, CUP-25-0134. Ms. Sharp.
All right, good evening, Kayla Sharp, Senior Planner. Have another CUP for you tonight. This one, there's 9 buildings, so might take a little bit longer, but bear with me. And feel free to stop me along the way if you have questions on anything. So this is a conditional use permit for 9 buildings located, it's basically between the Hobby Lobby and Academy and Seton Hospital, just to kind of get your bearings there. They are proposing 9 buildings, including 6 multifamily residential buildings, 1 mixed-use building, 1 clubhouse, and 1 restaurant, food and beverage building. A portion of the property is in the I-35 overlay. However, the developer has a development agreement which established building material requirements. So here is the site plan for you. I kind of tried to label the buildings in accordance with how they're going to be presented, but it kind of jumps a little bit all over the place. So like I said, just bear with me. There should be a legend on each page as well to kind of help you know where you're at. So the material requirements for street front buildings, front elevations, which is basically any buildings that have the front facade facing a public street, they are required to have a minimum 60% masonry, that being brick or stone or stucco. However, 40% minimum must be brick or stone. The remaining 20% can be stucco. And then the remaining 40% can be cementitious siding, which is like the fiber cement panels, hardy plank, hardy board, things like that, or other specialty materials. Specialty materials can only make up 15%. And this also applies to side elevations facing public streets. And then internal buildings for all elevations, minimum of 30% masonry, that being brick or stone or stucco. 20% has to be brick or stone. The remaining 10% can be stucco. And then 70% can be cementitious siding or other specialty materials. And then the restaurant building, it might also be called food and beverage building, has to be 100% masonry and glass, excluding doors and entrances. So here is one side of building 1. They were required to have a minimum of 30% masonry here. They provided 57, so that meets the requirements. Then you have the other side, again, and these are really small up here, so I'm gonna try and read them, but again, required to have 30% masonry, and they have provided 54%. And then this side, since this side faces a public street, they are required to have 60%, they provided 64% masonry. Building 2, they were required to have 30%, they provided 30%. This building kind of has a weird shape, so like I said, bear with me. It's a little bit difficult to follow along, but that key map will be your friend here.
Kayla, I'm sorry, can you go back one slide?
Yes.
The fiber cement minimum is 40 and they provided 36, is that correct?
That shouldn't be, so there's no minimum required
Okay.
fiber cement, that's just a labeling error. There's no minimum required fiber cement. They're required to have a minimum masonry. The rest can be the fiber cement.
Thank you.
Good catch. All right, another side of building 2, they were required 30% and they're providing 32%. Another side required 30%, providing 34%. Next side required 30%, providing 30%. Another side required 30%, providing 32%. And then another required 30%, providing 32%. And should be the last side. Oh no, we still have another side of building 2. Required 30% here, also providing 30%. This building 2 has a lot of sides. And then this one is required to have 30% masonry, and they're providing 31%. Next building, on to building 3. So this one is required to have 30% masonry. They're providing 30%. Same here, providing 37%. This side is providing 31%. And this side is providing 52%. And this side is 31%. So building 4 required to provide 30% masonry. They're providing 41 on this side, providing 40 on this side. Next building, building 5, they are required to provide 30% masonry, providing 31 on this side, providing 32% on this side, 32% on this side, and 41% on this side. Building 6, they are required to provide 30%, and they're providing 52% on this side. They're providing 31% on this one, 41 on this one, and 63% on this one. And building 7, this is our mixed-use building, so this will have ground floor retail, so you'll see a lot more glass with the windows and doors here. But taking that out of the equation, what they have left is they're providing 61% masonry on this side. And this will be the side kind of facing Seton Parkway, if that kind of helps you figure out where you're at. And then for the side elevations, they are providing, those numbers are so small, they are providing a little over 60% on both ends of that building. And then on the back side, they are providing just about 50%. And for the clubhouse building, they are providing 62%. And then 100% for the north side, 78% for the west side, and 62% for the south side. And then this is the food and beverage hall restaurant. I wanted to call out on this side the mural wall. So it will be masonry, but they are proposing a mural to take up a large portion of this wall, which is why it's kind of a blank facade. So there will be some artwork here as well. But other than that, it's 100% masonry. And then this side is also 100% masonry. 100% masonry here as well. And 100% masonry. So staff has reviewed all of these buildings for compliance with the building materials and architectural requirements established in the development agreement, and we found all buildings to be compliant. So your options tonight are to approve all buildings as presented, approve one or more buildings with modifications, or deny one or more buildings. And we are recommending approval of all buildings as presented. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, but not about the buildings.
Okay.
This whole area, right? Is this fenced in? Is this area going to be fenced in away from the stuff that's around it, or is it all just opened up, along the parking lots?
As far as just the development in general or certain
The development
areas?
in general, yeah.
They might have some fencing around the perimeter areas. I think there's also some grade changes at play, I think, especially adjacent to like the Academy and Hobby Lobby. I think we talked to them about whether there was going to be fencing or not, and I believe there were some grade changes there.
Okay.
So I think the plan as of now is primarily no fencing, but there might be some. There will also be landscaping, of course.
Perfect.
Melissa and Kayla, thank you for filling my emails today and figuring out all my questions. I know all my questions pertain to that section 5 of the development agreement that talked about amenities that were required to be presented to or be part of this plan. it seems like those questions are irrelevant now if the only thing that were subject to our purview is the building elevations, and there's no discussion on the amenities that appear to be lacking from the site plans that I saw that didn't list the Section 5 development agreement amenities. Is that correct in that all those questions really are irrelevant and we are only here to debate or discuss and take action on recommending the site plans from the elevation standpoint of the building and not the amenities as part of that development agreement?
So this review tonight specifically is for the building materials and elevations. There were other requirements in the development agreement as far as, I believe the section you're referring to is primarily kind of what we would call the vibe spot, event lawn. It is kind of hard to see on here, but there are some of the details shown on there. But tonight is primarily the building materials and elevations, the site plan, because this is development agreement and not overlay, is primarily an administrative process, and staff has reviewed for compliance with all of those sections in the DA.
Yep. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, I will go ahead with a couple of questions. For Building 7, can you please go back to the front elevation of that one?
Yes, sorry if I make anyone dizzy.
So many slides. Okay, so I noticed that compared to all the images, the railings on this one look different. So the railings here are opaque, like you can't see the windows and doors behind them, but on all the other buildings, you could see through them. So I wanted to, just ask the clarifying question. Is it different on this building, or is it just how the image was done? So I think if we go forward 2 slides, we'll see what the Building 6 railings look like. Maybe one more slide. Yeah, so here you can see through. Is it just a difference in the image, or were they planning to do something different on that one?
It could be the image. It also could be that they're more opaque. I'd have to look a little bit closer. But if it is more opaque, my best guess would be because it's facing a public street. They're probably trying to provide some additional privacy for residents, since it is facing public right-of-way and also the hospital.
So the road that's south of this property is not a public road, only on the east side?
So Plan South, that's a basically private,
Private road.
not even a street. It's
like a
really a drive aisle.
Public drive, a shared
Yeah.
public drive, but there is a street on the Plan East side.
Yeah, Plan
And
East will be the Seton Park.
And that is the vertical mixed-use building too.
Correct.
This building is, this Building 7.
It just looks like jail to me. I would never live in a place like that, but I guess if people want to do that, that's their right.
Well, also, they put stuff on the balcony and use it as storage almost, so it's almost better to shield it from the public eye. That way it keeps uniformity and you don't see everyone's stuff and whatever they put out there.
Just makes it a place that you can't really use. If you sit down in a chair, you're just looking at a solid fence. But again, people get to pick what unit apartment they want to be in, and I just wanted to ask the clarifying question. Interesting choice. And my next question, when I was looking at the development agreement, so a little backstory on this. This was the last meeting before I joined planning and zoning. So I watched this meeting in detail when they were discussing the PUD for this, and I remember it in more detail than I expected. And I remember that boulevard that they were trying to create, I think they're calling it an urban interior boulevard, creating flow through vehicular and pedestrian traffic. And kind of flanking that would be buildings 3, 5, 4, 6, kind of right there. Originally, as presented, that was going to have some office and co-working space, and they've moved all of that over to Building 7, from what I understand. So it's only residential in buildings 3, 5, 4, and 6. And I'm questioning if we're meeting the spirit of the development agreement when we're talking about having a pedestrian-friendly, street front development. Because if these are all apartments, there's nothing to do there, no one's going to walk along there, especially using those parallel parking spots if you then have to go like all the way into the building in order to access those units. I was hoping there would be someone from the developer here who could explain a little bit, like, will these ground floor residences, will they be accessible from the street? So it is like an active space where people can come and go from their homes to use that street, to walk from their building, and to create some sort of lively pedestrian flow on this boulevard? Or is it just gonna be a dead space with a bunch of parallel parking? Do we know?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a representative from the developer team here tonight, but I know Jason and I have had extensive conversations with them about this boulevard area. I don't have a definitive answer on whether those ground floor units would be directly accessible to those parallel spaces. I'm sure it's a possibility that's pretty common when you have parallel parking spaces directly in front of units, but I couldn't, give a definitive answer on that. I will say they still have the kind of boulevard design going on here. Even though it's not a public street, it really is a private drive aisle, but they'll have wider sidewalks that are gonna be constructed from pavers. They'll have some lighting that really, we've tried to work with them to kind of connect these units to that vibe space in the back so they can easily walk back to the food and beverage hall, the event lawn, things like that. So it's still, walkable for at least the tenants of these buildings.
It doesn't appear, based off the renderings now, that they would be accessible from the street. They don't have individual doors on them.
And some of them have a door to their little patio. Like if we look at building 3, yeah, so this is looking at it from the boulevard. You've got 5 units that would have ground floor access. Like if they had a little gate there and they could, enter the unit that way. I think it would go a lot towards fulfilling the spirit of this when it was originally made, which was for it to be a more lively atmosphere. But I don't know if that's something we are allowed to ask for. But while this picture is up, a question that I had was, when we look at CUPs, one of the things that is usually included is lighting, and I don't see lighting on these buildings. Will it be lit by streetlights, or is lighting not in the purview for the CUP of this particular project, or how does that work?
So this one, the lighting has been reviewed during the site development process, which was an administrative process for this project.
Okay.
So it has been reviewed for compliance. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure there's definitely some street lighting. I can promise you that. We've had conversations with the developer about that. I imagine there's probably some wall-mounted lighting and things like that as well. So there will be some lighting, and it has been reviewed for compliance.
Okay, cool, thank you.
So on that same line, what other things have been handled through the site development plan?
So pretty much everything besides the building materials that you're seeing here. So staff has reviewed landscaping, parking requirements, lighting, the vibe space and event lawn, all of those things, as well as like square footage. So they had some minimum requirements for retail square footage. The restaurant building had to be a minimum square footage, those sorts of things. Staff reviewed for compliance. Typically, site development is an administrative process, but when we have like the I-35 overlay, there's some site-specific requirements that are within the commission's purview for review for those CUPs.
Sorry about the question.
You're just fine, no worries. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Would it be something that we could ask in our motion to approve that they build little gates or something onto the stoops?
I think it's something you could recommend.
Because I really don't know anything about the safety of it. Like, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I would say it's something that you could recommend. I'm not sure how open they would be to requiring it. It also could be something they're already planning and it's just not shown on here.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't have a definitive answer for you on that tonight, but if that's something that you want to recommend that they look into, then you can make that recommendation. You could also make it a requirement. I just don't know what their response would be to that.
Yeah. Okay.
If the commission made it a requirement and the developer pushed back, what are their recourse options?
Again, they could appeal the decision to council. They could reapply. More than likely, they'll come back and say, we've met the requirements of the DA as far as materials go. So there could be some discussion on whether that was within the commission's purview or not, but just something to consider.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we would need a motion and a second to take action on this CUP.
I make a motion to approve the CUP as presented.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve as presented from Commissioner Serrato and a second from Commissioner Calafoot. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I just actually want to say real quick that if the idea was to keep it as a boulevard between those four buildings, why do these look just like every other apartment building that I've ever seen in my life? Like, if it's supposed to be a boulevard, there should be door access on the ground floor, right? Especially if it's right next to parallel parking. I understand there's nothing we can do about that. It's just a little frustrating. I wanted to get that out there.
Commissioner Calafoot, I thought I saw your finger go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if we're only approving the building elevations, then I really don't have anything else to add.
Madam Chair, I think I share a similar sentiment of concern at the development agreement spirit, in that if the intent of that boulevard is meant to be a walking corridor for public ingress, egress, and enjoying the community space that exists, like we said in that development agreement, there are other vibe pad areas that were asked to be included that I don't see inside that site plan. And I'm worried about that from an overarching standpoint, but I respect that if it's not the purview of tonight's discussion, that's a side item, but I do have concerns about that. And I don't know if adding in or recommending that we add access to that boulevard to these buildings would be helpful or harmful, and I share your unknown about, is that a safety concern that exists, or having individual gates per apartment? I could see the downsides there, but I do have some trepidation about the vibe or the spirit of that agreement.
Well, then my question would be, because I agree, so we're approving elevations. I don't know that we would ever have, this will ever come back to us to approve something else, so who's responsible to uphold the items that you've been discussing from the DA and the spirit of whatever it's supposed to, or was intended to be?
I mean, if you have concerns that something in the DA is not being met, I know Jason and I would be happy to hear those concerns and take a look and just verify. This has gone through 20+ staff members and multiple rounds of review on the site plan, so we're fairly confident that it meets all of the requirements, but we are also human, so if there are any, significant concerns that something's not being met, that's unrelated to the building materials and elevations, I think Jason and I would be happy to hear that and, double check.
And it might not even be requirements more so than intent, is what I hear, more so than long, because it may meet the requirements of what's being required, but maybe not the original intent that was discussed.
And fully respect, Kayla, that I'm also human. I could have overlooked it, and I'm happy to be corrected there. The specific items that I saw in the DA in Section 5 included boardwalk, food truck pad, live performance stage, splash pad, and volleyball or pickleball court. Those items I did not see. I understood that's part of that section 5 of the DA. I think those are all great things as we're trying to build out a vibe pad area that if the DA says to have it, then we should have it, because those are all good ways to get the community out inside of, from their home, to interact with each other, all those kinds of things. I'd love to continue to encourage that to the greatest extent that we can, especially in development like this, where you're eating, you're playing, you're living, all in that shared community space and connected to the Vibe Trail, which I did see that inside the site plan. I want to make sure that it's accessible to the community at large, especially if the city enters into a DA to bring these amenities to the community, that we actually get the amenities in the community.
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate you bringing up those concerns. I will say, like I said, it is very hard to see on here, so I apologize for not having a better site plan on hand to show you guys, but I can promise you there is splash pad, pickleball courts, boardwalk, all of those things have been reviewed and are included. They're just hard to see on this plan.
Perfect. As long as they do exist, I'm glad to hear that.
They do.
Agree, I could not see that and appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, and I will say, for better reference, it's kind of behind Building 9 over there in that space between between 9 and 2 is kind of that vibe spot of that area.
Yes, and the boardwalk is kind of along the property line that kind of overlooks, I'm gonna butcher the name, but I think it's Button Branch Creek or something like that. So it kind of overlooks that area. So they've, taken some time to really amenitize that space for, the city as a whole, but also the residents that are gonna be living here.
Thank you for alleviating my anxiety.
I'm going to take a stab at a modification to the amendment, an amendment to the motion. Golly. I would like to recommend the addition of gates for the multifamily properties on the ground floor that are next to parallel parking.
Just to clarify, recommend or require?
Recommend, because I don't know if there's like some safety reasons that we're not doing it, if it's just because we didn't think about it. So I guess maybe I'll let staff kind of use their judgment on that. You probably can find research and information about that easier than we can.
Recommend's great, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that amendment? Okay, the amendment to the motion is to recommend the addition of gates for those ground floor things next to parallel parking. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, so we have our amended motion to approve. Is there any other discussion on the CUP? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. That is approved. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we have reached the end of our agenda. There's no further business that can be discussed, so we are adjourned at 7:51.